You're listening to Women in Wellness, a program to help you create gorgeous growth for your blissful business in health and wellness. I'm Dr. Gabby, holistic health expert and founder of Women in Wellness, a one-of-a-kind course and community designed to empower and inform you about how to build a purposeful and profitable holistic business. And we have a super cool guest with us today, Sarica Cernohous. And Sarica is the author of The Funky Kitchen and has been practicing acupuncture for more than a decade. Hi.
Hey, Gabby. So good to be here. Thank you. And hi, everyone.
This is so fun. So you and I met out in California having adventures. And as we talked about before the call, spending a lot of money to learn about how to build our business and how to take things online and how to do the branding and the marketing and all that stuff. So yes. Yes. It's been really, really fun, and it's fun to connect with you here again and to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. As I mentioned in the intro, you wrote a book, The Funky Kitchen, and you've been doing acupuncture. You're passionate about nutrition and supplements and all kinds of things. So for the people who don't know you, who are listening, can you give us like a little bit of the background about why did you write this book and start doing this work?
Oh, that's cool. Thank you. Yeah. It's actually a book that I wrote for other healthcare practitioners, just like, everyone today. And it's something that was originally going to just be a live presentation. And my a man I teach with, who's also a partner in crime around health and nutrition, Dr. Jack Tips, he suggested to me that I just go ahead and turn it into a book. And so I did, and I self-published the book and got the first edition done. And afterward, I realized, wow, this is actually a step-by-step on very important information. So let me just brush it up a little bit, make it look prettier, get some good pictures in there. And so it's basically still that format. And I really wanted it, Gabby, for these healthcare practitioners when I first did that first presentation. It was taking everything that I had learned over about a decade's worth of time of practice and error. And it was something that, of course, those were the burgeoning days of really having a lot of good information online. And so it was a lot of trial and error. I used my sister's experience in food science. She's a chef. And so she helped me to kind of figure out the safe realms of working with traditional food preparation techniques. And so that's what the book is about. There are other really awesome books out on the market on fermentation and traditional food preparation techniques. Nourishing Traditions is one that many people may know. But I always felt like with those books that they almost had like it was established that there was an understanding about some basics. And when in fact, we all have to start somewhere, because I know I wasn't taught these things, handed down through generations. It skipped a few, and then I had to go relearn this. And
I was watching TV and playing on the computer when my mom was cooking. So that was not passed down.
Exactly. I know for my sister and me, we would just come home and watch PBS specials on cooking after school. And so we both had an interest in it. But for me, Amy went more with the artistic format of it. And I really went more with the health impact of it.
Nice.
Yeah. So
a practitioner could pick up this book and then use that stuff and advise their clients or whatever about how to do things.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That's the whole design of it and the thing I always say in my course around it, choose one thing at a time. Don't go big, just choose your one thing, pick that horse and you ride it. And then once you feel very adept at that, then you can move on to the next thing.
Nice. And how has the reception been like with the book? Do you getting great feedback?
I do. It's so nice. The feedback that I've gotten has been that it really filled that gap that I was hoping it would of, okay, here's the foundation of how you begin, and not just how, but I also think it's important if people are going to go to the effort of making a change, they have to understand why. And so I don't go deep, but I definitely give a very basic understanding of why these techniques are so important. And quite honestly, I think that they are the missing key for so many of the leaky gut patterns, autoimmune patterns that we see today. And so, I mean, I think it's a very noble and great thing, you know, to get out there and, you know, to eat organic and, you know, try a gluten-free lifestyle if that seems to be the right fit. I mean, there are a lot of ways that we can approach things, a paleo lifestyle.
Right.
But the thing about it is that I feel like when we just use some simple techniques, we're able to incorporate all those foods that we've been saying we can't eat. It's amazing. I mean, that's how our ancestors did it.
Right.
We were able to have that variety because they took care of the foods just a little bit before they ate them.
Before we got on the interview, I was just like Googling you to see what was out there, and I saw some interviews that you did in the past, and I'm wondering if this resonates with you. I noticed that some people were asking you questions about like, well, what's the difference between this kind of acupuncture and that kind of acupuncture?
Oh,
Well, like, there seems to be, like, we think because we're in this industry that everybody knows, right? Food and acupuncture and holistic, like that people just, but really there is like an awakening right now, right? Where people are coming into this, but we can't, you know, we can't assume that they know everything that we know being in the industry for so long.
It is so true. It was interesting the other day. I was catching a little Q&A with a practitioner, and he was saying, you know, it's the training that a person gets, their formal education around something is the base. And after that, that's when they go and explore how they want their practice to be. And quite honestly, that is a lifetime evolution.
Yes.
It really is. And you know, gosh, Gabby, we have so much available to us now in terms of information. It's overwhelming at times. It's overwhelming at times. And so again, you know, there's no way that we can be an expert in everything. And quite honestly, you know, when I first started, you know, studying acupuncture back in the 90s, I was, you know, I thought, oh, I've got to get to a place where I'm not going to have a lot of competition. And, you know, that was, you know, the mindset or whatever. And now here it is, you know, 20 years later, and I realize actually that there's no way I can do everything. There's no way I can know everything. And so the people who in the past I might have thought of as my competition are actually my biggest allies, because there are things they will specialize in and there are things that I can do well that are very unique to my skill set. So, you know, I think when we approach one another that way, oh my gosh, it is so much more loving and joyful.
Isn't that so fun to have that network of people, and you can refer to each other and you can give each other resources? Like, I just think that's so awesome.
It is so awesome. It's so totally awesome. And so, yeah, that's definitely the right mindset to have around it, I think.
Yeah, that's really great. Okay. So are you also, in addition to the writing and the speaking and all this kind of stuff, are you doing one-on-one like treatment with people? Are you still needling? Are you still doing that kind of stuff?
I am. I love that. I sometimes feel like I get more from that than my patients do. It's so grounding to be in the space with someone. Even when I was doing my internships in school, I always really gravitated toward a one-on-one experience. I was never one that liked to work multiple rooms, put in needles and leave. And so I actually have a home office. I'm actually sitting and talking to you in my one-person in my home office. And I love this. So I see patients 2 or 3 days a week at home, and it gives me that opportunity to just be in that really sublime, peaceful place with somebody and do something special. So yeah.
My first certification was massage therapy, and still after, like, that was 20 years ago or whatever, I don't know. Right. But still after all this time, just being in a session with somebody and touching them, it's just so awesome.
It is so
awesome.
It
never gets old. It never gets boring.
It doesn't.
You're like, oh, there's this beautiful body in front of me, and I can, you know, work on this beautiful body. I'm wondering, have you seen any kind of like patterns or things over the course of your practice that are more common? Before I talked to you, I was talking to a woman who works with breast cancer patients. And I think cancer's off the charts, right? Like inflammatory diseases.
Inflammatory diseases, they're huge, Gabby. And, it's funny because I was just, how sometimes like you're meditating or doing yoga or something, you get the download. Yesterday, I got the download of, gosh, I'm starting to really get to know a lot of people who are or being exposed to a lot of people who are very aware of how differently we're doing things in this 21st century than we did even 100 years ago or 500 years ago, in terms of our movement, in terms of the preparation of the foods that we're eating. Of course, our thought patterns, all of these things. And I thought, my gosh, it's maybe time to try and bring some of these minds together so we can create like a full plan, for the human experience. Because I think that a lot of what we're running into at this point is exactly as you say, the inflammatory issues, because we do have a more sedentary lifestyle. But part of what plays into that too, Gabby, is the constant stress that we're under, because it never lets up. The information never lets up. The dinging to us, the cell phone pinging and things like this, it never lets up. And so that all sets the tone, sets that pattern from never getting that opportunity to recover from the mild insults of inflammatory patterns that are natural and normal for us. And so one of the things that I teach on that I think is so important is that we have food coming at us all the time. We have stimuli coming at us all the time. And that is not part of the human design to have that at our physiological, anatomical, and mental experience. And so what we have to do is we have to use our minds to build in stop gaps of, I'm turning off the phone. I'm taking a break from meeting. I'm going to sit down and meditate. All of these things where all of this is always right there for us. But we have to use our good minds to say, you know what, I'm going to create something that is a little closer to what really my body and my mind is needing.
Do you put those things into your calendar for yourself? Like, do you have blocks of time where you're going to do that stuff?
I do. I don't fart around with it. One of the schools of practice that I adhere to is Ayurvedic medicine. And I'm what would be considered more of a Vata type.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, I know you. And so for girls like us, we really have to build in the quiet. That's so important. From a Chinese medicine perspective, the female affect is yin. And so it's receptive, it's soft, it's quiet. And everything about our lifestyle now is very yang, the more male, active. And that will burn out a woman's yin, her more fluid aspect, like nothing else. And so we have got to create those yin spaces in our life, the places of meditation, the places of actively walking away from all of our electronic devices and going outside. Those little stop gaps. And I build it in every day. If I didn't, I would go nuts.
That's awesome. So awesome. And before we jumped on here, you also mentioned about something that you're doing around metabolism. So like, what is metabolism and how is that related to all this kind of constant stimulation?
Oh yeah, that's an awesome question. Thank you. I've never had someone put it that way. I love it. The training in Chinese medicine that I had, that was a 4-year year-round study. And it was like a major transformation in how I view the world. And so everything is always kind of going through that filter now. And when we push and push and push, and we had this very yang presentation, anytime that so consider this like building a super huge bonfire. Like it's just raging and you're tossing pallets of wood on there and it's just raw, it's massive. At some point, it will burn itself out and it will go to the coldest, littlest ember ever. And this constant stimulation that we're talking about in terms of food, in terms of never settling your mind down, what this does is this is like that giant bonfire. And when we continue to push and push and push while we're in the middle of it, we may feel very activated by it. We may actually even lose weight for a period of time because we're so activated by it, but we eventually get to a point where we burn ourselves out. And when we burn ourselves out, that's when we're at that cold ember. And we do not have the capacity for making transformation of the nutrients that we bring into our lives. And so what do? We start snacking because we're just looking for some kind of an up in terms of energy. Well, in Chinese medicine, when we're always bringing something down the pipe this way, we begin to create a stagnation of the energy and the fluids in our body. And it lends itself toward getting a little bloaty, a little fatty. And so we go from active to inactive. I mean, we've really done that to ourselves. And so again, working with the metabolism, one of the things that's so important, because every time we do eat, it's an oxidative stress to our body. I mean, it's a lot to humanize nutrients, to take that pork chop or whatever it is and turn it into usable functional material for our muscles, our bones, our eyes. So that's a big deal. That takes a lot of energy. It also really engages our immune system because that's like bringing in a lot. So the body's got to make sure we're safe from that. So that requires a lot of this yang energy to process. So when we give ourselves active breaks between eating, like a 5 to 7 hour break, in the daytime, that's huge because then we're letting our body fully process the meal that has been, given to it, really do its due diligence on that, and then recover from it. And what ends up happening at a biological perspective is we start shifting hormones related to satiety and going from what we would call a sugar burner to being a fat burner. Our body learns to pull on its own reserves a little bit. So we put ourselves into a proper metabolic balance when we do this. And having these kind of intermittent fasting periods every day. And again, it's not like I'm saying, take an 18-hour fast every day. I'm saying, 5 hours between meals. And folks will think, oh, okay, great. And they won't realize what they're putting in their mouths. They could be putting a cup of coffee, or they could be chewing gum, or they could be having water with lemon in it. Just water between meals. That's the only thing.
Wow. Okay. That's the first time that I've heard that. I don't think I've heard that before. Definitely not described in that way. That's really interesting.
Cool.
And so so that's what you recommend to your students and your clients and stuff.
I do. That's a huge part of it. That's like kind of the mainstay of it. But the thing about it, Gabby, is if a person's not eating nutrient dense at their meals, they're going to fag out. They're going to be so tuckered and hypoglycemic. So they've got to, like, the thing that I've always said is just make sure every forkful is as nutrient dense as it can be, so that there's no problemo going from lunch, to dinner, with that 5 to 7 hour break. And I used to be a hypoglycemic ninny. I mean, I was such a train wreck with hypoglycemia, and I was always having to keep a little something in my pocket, and I was just like a squirrel all day long, And now, because I've combined kind of traditional foods and nutrient-dense eating with this design of taking these fallow periods between meals, like, if I have breakfast and I have to skip lunch because I've had a crazy busy day, by the time dinner comes, I will be hungry, but I'm not like, shaking and sweating and a train wreck. That doesn't happen anymore.
That's so funny. The hangry, you don't get hangry?
No hangry.
Oh, that's so cute. Okay, so I'm wondering, for you, do you see a big difference, like, delivering this information face-to-face versus online? Because, like, you think it's just as effective, whether you're kind of like teaching this.
Yeah. I really do. I mean, I have to say, I think one of the tremendous gifts that I got through that training with traditional Chinese medicine is, here's the second time I'm going to use this word, but it's sublime. It's sublime. It's potent. And it's simple to understand. And so it's a way that allows me, I think, to hopefully be explaining things in a way that whether a person's available, right in front of me, or, I'm talking to 100 people in a webinar, that it can convey. And there's the thing about it too, Gabby, is that I'm talking about something that I think all of us at our core know is true. Like, it just resonates. And so when you touch on truth that way, it's like, okay, it doesn't need a lot of explanation. You just feel it. And it's so, I can't tell you, it's so awesome to not have, the constant fear of like, where's my next bagel coming from? That was back in the 80s.
Because at that point it's like an addiction. It's like, I need. Okay, so what's next? So what's next for you, for Funky Kitchen, for your practice? Like, what's the vision?
Oh dear gosh, so you know how this is. I mean, it's unlimited, the ways that things can go. What I've done with the Funky Kitchen is I created an online training around it. And so I've got that for the public, for people that want to plug into that. But I've also got a continuing education unit component related to it for acupuncturists and practitioners of nutrition. And so that's something that's out there. I've really tinkered with the idea of having a Funky Kitchen training that allows people to be teachers of it, and they
I want you to build the Funky Kitchen school, and I want it to be funky, and I want to come to this place like crazy and funky, and I mean, it just sounds like someplace I want to go,
It's cool. I mean, it really is. And I know that I'm always thinking about that.
Like I like have this kind of love shack kind of vision in my mind.
I love it.
Funky place,
I think that's so cool. So yes, you know how this is. I mean, you start working in this kind of more virtual environment, and then you get these opportunities to physically come and be with people. And it is like the most soul enriching thing. And yeah, if you add food to it, and like how to do things in such a cool way, that to me is like super powerful. So yeah, that's in the works. I'm not saying that's not going to happen. Maybe this year, because I finally hooked my sister into working with me more closely, and so now I would have the chef with me doing this work, which is
nice.
I know. So that, and then the other is, I've really been melding the metabolic balance work with the Funky Kitchen coursework. And because to me, if we can get people's weight balanced, and metabolic balance is cool. It's a plan from Germany. It's been around for over a couple of decades. And it uses lab values and a person's health goals and their health history. And so every food plan that is generated for that person is using food as medicine, and just regular food from the grocery and the farmer's market, so nothing fancy. So that's super cool. But I've always felt like at the tail end of that, people can so enhance their vitality and like so up their game around their nutritional bioavailability by using the techniques of the Funky Kitchen. And so I've merged them. And so,
yay,
that's been fun too.
So because we're running out of time, tell people where they can find you and how they can learn more about what you're doing. Are you on social media, that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So I am on Facebook. I think it's Naturally Living with Sarica, and Sarica is Sarica. I think that's my Facebook page. And then my standard kind of website is naturallylivingtoday.com. And that's got a ton of information. So that's probably the best way. And then just good old email is great. Other social media platforms, but for me right now, it's mostly Facebook and the website.
Well, we like the Funky Kitchen, and make sure you let me know if you build an actual Funky Kitchen, because I will come there. I'm super grateful that you hung out with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gabby. I'll take care, okay?
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. You can join the Women in Wellness Club at women-in-wellness.com.